Hey, Redeeming Grace Church, Pastor Josh here, and this is the weekly update. I have some exciting news for you. At our family meeting last night, where our members gather once a month to just handle the business of the church and fellowship and encourage one another, we, at that meeting last night, affirmed 3 men to serve in the office of elder for the coming year. Those men are Justin McGeary, Jamie Love, and Steve Coper. We started back in really last year. We began reading a book as members called Finding Faithful Elders and Deacons, just thinking through the qualifications and what to look for in those gifts that God gives His church of elders and deacons. We then, after completing that book, I handed out a sheet, an anonymous sheet, to all of the members in our church and just said, hey, based off of the scriptural qualifications and what we've just read together, who are the men that you think are meeting those qualifications now and would be guys that you would be comfortable following their lead if they were elders. And so both of those parts are important. Both they meet the qualifications and you would follow their leadership. You wouldn't fight against them, you wouldn't undermine them, you wouldn't criticize them. So who are those men that the congregation already feels confident meet those qualifications? And so the three names that came up very highly on that list were Steve, Jamie, and Justin. So I went and began to just notify those guys that their fellow members saw them as elder type guys, and they were all humbled by that and willing to engage in a process of preparation for eldership. And so starting in January and then meeting every single Thursday since at 6 a.m., we've been reading through books together on shepherding and God's church and what it looks like to have a community, a team of shepherds leading God's church. And we got to May, excuse me, and those men were willing to be brought before the congregation for examination and consideration. So then we spent all of our family meetings, May, June, July, August, had those guys fill out a questionnaire, and then had each of them sit in front of the members and just have the members ask whatever questions that they felt were relevant to the role of elder and their comfort level in having them serve as elder. And so we completed that process last night, had a vote. All 3 guys were overwhelmingly affirmed to serve in that office for the next year. And so just be ready to kind of see them leading and taking more visible responsibility in the life of the church, and be praying for them. This coming Sunday, we're going to do a installation service for those guys. What that looks like is I'm going to go ahead and just preach a message to the congregation about the value and role of elders and what the high calling it is. And that'll be a charge to those guys, just explaining sort of what the Lord expects of them in this role. It also will be an opportunity to teach all of us of what God's intention is for these men and their relationship to us as members of the church. There'll be some vows where I have those guys vow to the congregation, to the members, that they're going to conduct themselves in a certain way. And then the congregation will also have 2 vows that they affirm in terms of how they're going to support and follow the lead of these elders. So we're really excited about this big step in the maturity of our church and the health of our church. The Bible clearly describes that churches should be led by a team of shepherds, not just one lone shepherd. And so this is a really important step for us. I do think that as a young church, eldership is going to have to be something that develops over time, and these guys are willing to be the guinea pigs for that. They're willing to help set the trajectory of that, which is why we only did a year. So I think it's going to take a year. I think it's going to take us about a year to kind of get eldership up and running the way that it really ought to in the life of our church. Those guys will then have the option of whether they want to be considered for reaffirmation to continue in that office. Our members will also have an opportunity as well that if after a year they kind of go, yeah, we appreciate these guys serving in this way, but we would either like to add additional elders, or we would like to have one of these guys serve in maybe a different capacity in the church. So there's a couple of spots where we can sort of get off the interstate and sort of reevaluate what we're doing and test it with scripture along the way and make adjustments as we go. So that's a really exciting decision that was made last night, and really excited for this new phase in the maturity of the life of our church, and for these guys to be brought even further behind the curtain of ministry and be pushed out even more publicly into some of the ministry in your life. And so I'm grateful for that, and just be expecting that shift to be happening over the course of the next year. Another thing that was exciting is that we voted on a plan for a 1-year residency with Scott Martin. what a residency is. It's kind of similar to like a medical residency where, someone who's trained to be a doctor does a residency with another doctor with a hospital in order to sort of learn the ropes and become skilled before essentially doing the job on their own. That's the same kind of idea, is that Scott is here. He has a desire. He and Jessica and their family are sensing a desire to lead God's church as a pastor, but potentially even planting a church. And so we're going to create a 1-year residency where he's going to do some reading. He's going to get various ministry experiences. And the idea is that after this next year, he will have learned enough of the behind the scenes things about pastoring and planting a church that he would be equipped, and if the Lord was leading would have everything that he needs to go plant a church or take over a struggling church and revitalize it. So our church has voted to put in a little bit of money to compensate him for the extra time that he'll be putting in here at the church. He'll have opportunities to do all of the pastoral ministry stuff that pastors do. I'll be meeting with him. Our elders will be meeting with him. Our members will give him regular feedback as he aspires and trains for that. It could be a few years before the Lord calls them to a certain work. So this is not a rushed thing. This is not a temporary thing. They want to plant their lives here in Rapid City. They want to see and lead God's church here in this area. And we're just going to help them discern and be prepared to do whatever it is the Lord's calling them to do. So that was an exciting decision as well last night. And so I plan to see Scott involved in all of the different areas as he gets the opportunity to engage in all that, and we get the opportunity to kind of benefit from his ministry and his growth in towards pastoral leadership in a formal vocational way. All right, the women's retreat, ladies, sign up for that this week if you can. There's a men's retreat that's being planned for the second weekend in October. Men, the signups for that, you can go ahead and look at that and block those dates off. We'd love to have a good time, a good number of our men involved in that as well. We are going to do an installation service for those elders, like I mentioned, this Sunday. So we're done with the Sermon on the Mount. We've completed that yesterday. It was a great study. And then on September 11th, we're going to kick off a study called Living Faith, a sermon series through the book of James. We're going to go real slow and steady through that book. It's going to be really practical. It's going to be really challenging. But I think it's going to help us live our faith more vibrantly as a congregation. So be looking for that. Obviously, growth classes and all the other things that I normally promote, home groups, we encourage you to engage in those as well. But thank you for being a part of this church. Thank you to the members for handling your responsibilities and exercising your authority in such a way that we now are maturing as a church. For those of you that are not yet members, we would encourage you to consider that. I'm going to, in the next, hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have a plan for another Discover RGC class, because I know there's a number of you kind of waiting in line to explore the idea of membership at Redeeming Grace Church. I don't want to hold you up too much longer, so be watching for that. I'll put the word out and give you a personal invite when I have a good plan put together for that. I also would love to do a baptism service at the end of, or add baptism to one of our services at the end of September, early October. So if that is something that you're processing and considering, then I would encourage you to let me know so that then we can have the conversations, and that would be a great thing in the next month or so if we had a handful of people that wanted to declare their faith through baptism. And man, so many other great things that are going on. You know about them. You don't need me to talk about them anymore. So I love you. Thank you for being a part of this, and I'll see you next week. Bye.